All right, weaving on a cardboard loom. You can also use foam board, but you got to use the good stuff. You need something sturdy. Same thing with the cardboard. You need something that's got some heft to it. You know, this is a fancy box that came with the milk, so that's the first part. Find your board. The next part, decide which way do you want your design to orient. Do you want it to be landscape, in which case you're going to mark the top and bottom of it for your warp threads? Or do you want it to be portrait? You'll mark the shorter sides in this case, and this will be my warp, and my design will be in the portrait orientation. So that's part one. Which way do you want it to go? I'm using a lovely leftover scrap from, I don't know what, of my nieces. This one happens to be square or pretty close to it, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm just gonna pick my nicest edges for marking. You want your marks about 1/4 inch apart. I'm saying about because, you know, depending on your cardboard and everything else, 1/2 inch is too far. 1/4 inch is kind of pushing it. I will probably cut a deeper slice so that it holds it. But if I'm going to do that, I think the paint's still wet. Ha 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 ha. Not too close to the edge, otherwise you will break that part and then end up with missing warp. So I've gone to within 1/2 inch of the edge. Here. Does it matter if your warp on this is perfectly square to everything? No, because things are going to shift and everything else, but you know, it's not a bad idea to start out somewhat close to it. So I said mostly 1/4 inch apart. This is not the meticulous, you know, for studio couture, etc., but it will definitely work for a cardboard loom. And then you just cut. You could use your X-Acto or some such, but I found that the scissors just work really well. You know, just to make my life a little easier for myself and a little more on the consistent end, I'm gonna draw a line of how deep I'm cutting. Let's go 3/8. Why 3/8? Just because that's what I decided to go with. 1/4 inch seems too short, 1/2 inch seems too long, so 3/8 is where we're going. And these are old kitchen shears that I repurposed. You don't want to use anything remotely resembling your good scissors on cardboard. If you've got, you know, office scissors, regular old stuff you cut your paper with, go for it. But for God's sakes, do not use fabric scissors. And I just do the same to the other side. Not meticulously spaced, but the nice thing is once you have the warp on and you start weaving back and forth, all of that starts to even out its spacing, especially once you start packing down your weft. So it will turn out all right if you're off. We certainly aren't going to be worried, you know, to the 16th of an inch or anything like that. And it's just going to be easier for me to do this off the edge of the table, so I'll be back. For your warp, you can use just about anything you want. Wool is very forgiving. Some of the other fibers aren't so forgiving. This was just one of those nice basic wools from, you know, the big box store with a coupon. And I went with this and the pale color so that I can dye the rest of the wool. But for the moment, I'm just going to use it as the pale for the warp. I'm working on a tapestry, so I'm not going to see the warp thread, so that's what that's for. Get that out of its little thing. And I know they tell you that this wonderful yarn coming out of here means that it is a center pull yarn, and all you have to do is pull that out and everything will undo nicely from the center, and I end up with knots every single time. So I don't use their center pull. I go from the outside. It has saved me many hours of cleaning up mess. Into the lovely cut that you made, I'm leaving a tail. There you go, pull-ups, so that I'll have something to work with at the end of everything. So down the board into that first cut, then you kind of swoop around behind it and up to the next cut, and swoop around behind and down, and you're going to do that all the way across your board. You want to make sure that you're traveling in one direction. Either way doesn't matter, but you don't want to end up crossing things. It's going to make a mess of your warp later, make things difficult for you. You want the yarn snug, but not bow tight. You do not want it to pull your board into an arch, right? But not loosey-goosey, and then it doesn't hold its body and form. So, you know, just what lays down there, and then you pull it in, and that usually is the right amount. Oops. So you don't bend your little teethies, or you will end up with yarn popping off. Okay, so that's all set up. Now what I have right now would give a rather loose construction. All right, I've worked my way all the way across. And now I'm going to work my way across again to give me double the number of warp threads. That's going to allow me to do more intricate designs and get better curves, again, since this is a tapestry. Oh, let's see. Whoops. Here it is, all ready to go. Now, I missed a slot. Obviously, I missed it on the first pass across. When I came back, I could have gone ahead and put, yarn as my doubled up, going back and forth, but I was worried about getting those warp threads crisscrossed. So I decided to just skip it. If this wasn't cardboard, I could have undone my warp, made sure I put that hole, redo it back up. But since I'd already done that partially once, I really didn't think the cardboard would stand up to it again. So I'm gonna skip that and it will all even out in the end. And in the meantime, I'm going to add some tape up and over the sides to reinforce the cardboard and to make sure that my yarn stays in the slots and does not jump out at an inopportune moment. There we go. Just tape, folded it over to the back. And I taped down my starting and end tail, mostly so that it's not flopping out there and getting in the way. There you go.